think we'll get started. So if we got some little bit of back feed here, feedback, whatever. We'll try this.
I can turn it down a little bit anyway.
Take it up. Is that any better?
I'll turn it down a bit.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Nice side track. Okay, we'll get started. This is our agenda for tonight. We'll save lots of time at the end for all the Christmas treats and our social time. And we should have a bit of variety here tonight. It's our usual bring and brag or show and tell, whatever you want to call it. And we have a few announcements as well.
I can put my name on there.
Okay. Now, we do give the opportunity to our first-time attendees, if they want to kind of advertise the families that they're researching. If they do, first of all, do we have any first-time attendees here tonight? We've got one.
Good.
Perfect. If you would like, if you want to stand up, introduce yourself, and throw out a few names and areas that you're researching, you can see if you have any cousins in the building tonight.
My name is Erica Steinhubble. And all of my relatives, my mother and father side of the family, come from a small town in Slovakia called Tuzina. And I have a book that lists all of the births, marriages, and deaths that go back to 1685.
Nice.
On both sides of the family. So I'm looking for Steinhubble Greshner and Evans from Jamaica. An offshoot.
It's just a little different.
But mostly, like I did some genealogy in Vero Beach when I was wintering there 5 years ago. Wonderful genealogy part of the library. And then I went to work in San Diego. But so I kind of let it go by the wayside, but I started it up again because I want to get this done. And I need somebody, I live in Bowmanville, I need somebody to help me kind of get through my heritage. That's really what I'm here for.
Okay, well, welcome. And we'll talk about our office and things upstairs after we're a little later in the program, but we're always willing to try and help you. We always have lots of free advice to give out. Sometimes that's all it's worth, but we do have free advice. And I think you already signed a sheet at the back, so I don't have to worry about that. And that was it for new people tonight. Okay, well, welcome. Just a reminder, the 20 membership for the Ontario Genealogical Society, or Ontario Ancestors, however you wish to call it. The Grow Our Family is back. We're running out of time, but if you can get a member to sponsor you, you both get 50% off your membership. That's a savings of $31.50. It goes till noon on December 15th, so not too much time left. But if there's anybody in the room that hasn't belonged to OGS for a couple of years, I think there's a 2-year minimum wait, and wants to share it with anyone else here, we can try and set you up. So just let us know, and we'll see what we can do. Is there anybody that might be interested in that? I'll try and start it now, I guess. If anybody's interested in the Grow Our Family at all, where you can save some money, you might be interested? Okay.
I wouldn't mind if somebody sponsored me, but would it help me get information?
It
I don't
depends.
have any relatives in Ontario.
Yeah, you would certainly get the camaraderie and kind of the free advice and things like that. But and while some of the membership will have people from different areas around the world, our main focus is certainly Ontario. But we're all, from somewhere, if you know what I mean. But, so it's kind of a 50-50 thing. There's a lot of advantages, but they're not as much as if you had deep Ontario roots. There's no two ways about it. I mean, you can talk it over with us later, and we'll see if we can. Okay. Okay, I just did that.
Steve, you can pull that computer a little closer to you if you, I didn't know you were gonna stand over on that side.
Where it's not terribly long.
Not
No,
typically.
just,
Actually, it's catching there too.
Oh.
So maybe not. There we go. Okay. That's good. I can stretch it.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Upcoming OGS, I can't think what they're called. I think it's cut off. Webinar, thank you, yeah. There you go. It's supposed to be on there.
yeah, well, yes, sorry, technical difficulty.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's underneath there. That, I knew. I was pretty sure it was there when I looked at it earlier. Anyways, Linda Korup, is that how you pronounce it? Korup? Okay, or Korup. I'll get it right sooner or later. But she's doing the webinar, and it will be concerning records associated with the administration of justice in Upper Canada. So if you want to learn more about the early records of Ontario, it would be well worth listening to her presentation. We actually do have some books of hers on this subject, I believe, that are upstairs, like with lists of names of various trials and things like that. So we do have some books to look at in our library collection by this author and on this subject. And since the webinar for January 2020 is going to be before our meeting and we can't advertise it, Thomas McKenty will be talking about smarter search strategies. You can always check the OGS website if you want to get a little better idea of what he's going to be talking about. I don't think there's any more on here, but let's just check. A little bit. Just the list, I guess. There's the list up to June for what's coming. So Thomas McKenty in January. Mags Golden will be talking about DNA databases in February. March is Hugh Brandenburg talking German and Polish archives. Blythe Creed talking family history using the Archives of Ontario collection. In May it will be Beverly McCullough using Ontario's township papers. And keep tuned for more information on OGS and Ontario's township papers because there's some real neat stuff coming. We're going to be, sounds like we're going to be indexing some of them and making them available. They have been digitized already by the Archives of Ontario, and OGS is in the process of connecting up and getting involved in it.
What do you mean by township papers?
They are kind of companion papers to the land deeds and land records. It's kind of extra papers concerning different lots. They're actually filed by lot and concession in each township, and it can be a little bit of anything. If there was a fight over the land, the papers might have got registered under that, because they're not actually the transfer of the land from one to the other, which would be the deeds, but it would be all the documents concerning the ownership or whatever, the fight, and there's a little bit of everything in there. It's kind of hard to say, but it is very helpful, especially for early records when there's not a lot of land records showing the transfers. You know, we'll say 1800 to 1840 or whatever. Most of the deeds and stuff tend to start later than that, except for the initial grant. So this is one way to kind of fill in the blanks of who else was on that land in the middle of it. Sometimes there isn't one for a lot, but sometimes there's several papers or whatever for a lot. So. Okay, and in June, Jenna LeMay will be talking about researching Indigenous ancestors in Northern Ontario. I'm looking forward to that one because that might help me. So, registration for these webinars will be open shortly on the OGS website under the Education tab. I guess we still get a little feedback there, but that's okay.
What if you turned the microphone and Steve stood over on the other side of the microphone?
Okay.
I can try.
Doesn't need to be really loud.
Okay, save the dates. OGS conference is coming. It'll be held in the Hamilton Convention Center, June 5th to 7th. And the website is listed there, which is conference2020.ogs.on.ca, so it's pretty easy to remember. And you can find out all about it and who's going to be featured, some of the speakers that are coming. Lots of good stuff going to be at conference, so start planning. And apparently, today is Giving Tuesday. So if you want to make a donation to OGS or anybody else, today's the day. December 3rd, 2019. I know, everybody gave at the office, right? But Nancy's putting this into the thing here just to let everybody know. If anybody's feeling in the Christmas spirit, today's the day. If you have any money left over after Cyber Monday. and Black Friday. Okay, Vernon Directories update. The LDS have been digitizing all the collection in the, I believe it's the Library and Archives Canada. And they've made great progress. For us, we're mainly the Oshawa and Whitby directories. It's right here. It says there's 32 Whitby directories, and I forget where Oshawa, well, there we are, 52 Oshawa directories. Now, the only catch is the Whitby directories are probably combined with the Oshawa directories, so they're probably one and the same. So you're looking at about 52 books for the Whitby Oshawa area altogether so far. And I took a quick look, and they're easy to work through. Of course, they're all alphabetical, so that part, nobody's going to go through and index them or anything because they're alphabetical to start with. But it's a great resource if you're trying to track people in areas that had these books. Hopefully, I'm not sure if there's any other books for this area that were created. I don't know if Bowmanville had any or any of the other towns. Does anyone else know here of any other Vernon directories for our area? No? Nothing.
It's just Bowmanville. I mean, just Oshawa would be was one book.
Okay, that's the only one I've ever heard of too. So, okay, but they are going to town on it.
Steve, sorry, another question. I noticed there's no Durham, Northumberland, Vernon directories.
That's what we were just saying. Like, it's usually bigger towns from Vernon's because they were doing the towns, and Bowmanville would be one of the few other towns that would be a fair size. Bowmanville, maybe, I don't know if even are. I don't think any of the, well, Coburg's actually not in Durham, so that's actually over in Northumberland. So it might have had one, but I don't know because we've concentrated more on the old Ontario counties and Durham counties.
But lacking that, wouldn't it be nice for the old telephone books, a few of them to be scanned?
And I wouldn't be surprised to see that coming up eventually too. Mm-hmm. I don't know who has a collection of them, so that might be part of it, but I mean, other than our little one upstairs, but if the archives have been collecting those as well, that would be another thing. And that would be a more comprehensive collection across Ontario too, because that would cover a larger area.
But only people that had a telephone.
But only people who had a telephone, and that's something that you'd almost need indexed because there's so many little towns that they could be in. But this is a great start anyways. Now, she's got 152 results up there for Whitby, but we'd have to go check. I don't think they're all Vernon's, that's for darn sure. Not when the other page said 32, so I'm not sure what the 152 results for Whitby are. It may include some of the older directories as well, which there are, but I don't think there's that many.
Now, I'm assuming all of these are OCR'd, so you can do a word search. I think they are. I'm
honestly not sure, but because they're alphabetical, they're not hard to play with it anyways.
I think the Peterborough ones are.
Yeah, they
OCR'd.
could be. I honestly have not followed up on it. I just use ours in the collection upstairs for the most part.
I have a 1937 one for Peterborough, but the printing is so bad in it, I don't see how it could ever be OCRs.
Yeah.
It's just a bad run on that particular part of the print job.
Another tip for you, always take information with a grain of salt. Like you mentioned phone books. It doesn't cover unlisted numbers. And for years, my grandmother wouldn't pay. She didn't want her number out there, but she didn't want to pay for an unlisted. So she just registered her phone in another name.
Yeah.
And they got so there's a fake name there, and that's her.
I think my mom's is still under my father's name, and he's been gone for 27 years, so.
In early days, there were a lot of small private telephone companies. For example, Creemore was originally called Noisy River, and others I don't know.
Orno.
Yeah, Arnold's was private till just recently type of thing.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to see what they could do with that.
They still might have had telephone books.
Yeah.
They did have telephone.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, for those of you who are here at the November meeting, we're still looking for volunteers to give us a hand, looking for members at large, and if anyone would like to take notes at our council meetings, please see one of us, myself, or Deb, or Sheila, John. We can always use an extra hand, and all this will start in the new year. So we appreciate any help we can get and any ideas we can get. If there's any ideas you think we should be doing, or even a few things that you don't like that we're doing, we're always willing to listen. Oh, we're up to our main presentation. Bring and brag or show and tell, whichever you'd like to call it. Thank you.
You're more organized than I am.
And it would appear Elizabeth is at the top of the list. So Elizabeth, would you like to come and tell us your story?
Thank you.
Might have to do some microphone adjusting there. And
I don't have much.
Just pull that down.
Sorry.
I don't have much. I just, I did my DNA and sent it up to GenMatch. And anyways, I got a response back from St. Petersburg, Russia. But that was quite a surprise to me because I didn't think we had any Russian in our family. So anyways, what I did is I brought the emails that I had with the guy in Russia, that matched his mother-in-law, 78.9 centimorgans across 14 shared segments. So that was quite a surprise. We figured it goes back to about 1780, but I can only get my German family back to 1830 on one line. So I have no idea where it is, but it leaves me a mystery for me to work on. And that's all I've got. Here.
The one on the table there?
Yeah, 78 centimorgans, that's not a bad length, so, or bad total, I should say. It's a total, not a single one.
Yeah, especially the 14 segments.
Yeah, it depends. Hopefully 13 of them are tiny and one is long.
Yeah.
Okay, Barb, would you like to give us your bring and brag, or?
Try.
watch the wires.
It's just gonna go around the other way.
It's going to take a minute to... Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I'll give you a little bit of background. My father was born in Windsor, and my mom was born in Detroit, or in Michigan, and grew up in Detroit. So I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie. My dad, and this is, I guess, not too different from nowadays, probably in the 1930s, was going across the border from Essex County to Detroit looking for work. I don't know if that was legal or not, but he found a sales job in a place where my mother was working in the office in a coffee company. So I guess they started dating. They got married in 1939 and moved to Amherstburg, which is in Essex County, just outside of Windsor. My mother was devastated to move to this tiny little town from Detroit. Anyway, the war came along. My dad worked in Ottawa during the war, and then my mother was pregnant with me. She moved back to live with her mother in Detroit, came back across the border to have me because my dad wanted me to be a Canadian. And after the war, my dad got a job with the, I think, Central Mortgage and Housing, helping with the wartime housing up in the Sioux. So that's how we ended up there. But every summer we would drive down through Michigan and visit my grandmother in Detroit and my grandmother in Amherstburg. I loved going to Detroit, and I didn't like going to Amherstburg because I was stuck there for a week or so with nothing to do and no place to go, nobody I knew, just reading, I guess. So anyway, these, oh no, now I have to go back.
Just reading.
Back. So these are who my ancestors are that I'm talking about. There's my dad at the bottom. His mother was born in Essex, Minnie Louise Bennett. Her father was born 1843 in Essex County, William Daniel Bennett. And then the immigrant ancestor was Joseph, who came in 1832 to first the United States, worked in Detroit for a couple of years, but somehow had land that he could take up in Essex County. So my dad never really talked about where he lived much or anything, and when we were down in Essex, he never took me to Essex and showed me the street he grew up on or anything. So I belong to a genealogical writing group, and I mentioned this to some people, and I said, I'd really like to go to Essex County and see if I can find out where the old farms were and that kind of thing. And a friend there said, I'll go with you. And so this August, we took our little road trip to Essex County, and she's into photography and birding, plus the genealogy. So the deal was she would come with me to the repositories half the time, and I'd go with her to do the birding and stuff, and the photography. And I wasn't too excited about that, but yeah, maybe anyway, I did go with her, and I learned to love Essex County. It's just very beautiful, I thought. So anyway, this is Joseph. He trained in England as a carpenter, worked in Detroit, went to Essex County, and he apparently named this area where his farm was Maidstone Cross. So it's near Maidstone. I don't know who named Maidstone. Maybe he did as well. I don't know. Anyway, I was really interested in the other ancestors, the Greaves and the Collins and Bennett, like where my actual grandmother grew up. That's what I wanted to see. I didn't care too much about Joseph and so on. But as we were driving to Windsor, I started talking to my friend Carol about Colonel Talbot. I don't know how many of you have heard of Colonel Talbot. I said, oh, he was this guy. I saw this show about him, this documentary, and he got all this land to distribute, and I wasn't clear whether it was mostly around London and the county around there, or whether he had had land to distribute in Essex. They seemed to talk more about the London area. But anyway, so I'm saying, oh, he was really odd. He would have all these plots of land, and people would come to a window in his house and ask for the land, the plot, whatever, and he would pencil their name on the plot. And then later on, if he had a falling out with the person or decided they weren't doing what he wanted them to do or whatever, he'd take his little eraser and, you were penciled out kind of thing. So I just thought it was an interesting story, and then we ended up driving around the whole Windsor, Essex area and up and down Talbot Road, which is where some of the farms actually of my Greaves ancestors and so on were. This is Essex County. In case you don't know, the whole orange part is Ontario, and then Essex is at the very bottom left of that orange part.
Steve, there's that red pointer thing there if you want to help
Oh,
out.
well, that might be closer.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it's one of those either. So there's Maidstone. Windsor's up just right across from Detroit. Essex, where my dad was born, and South Woodswick's where his mother was born. I don't know how well you can see that, but this was on one of the birding excursions, and I just thought it was beautiful. There were these beautiful swamps and marshes, and my dad never showed me any of these things. And then the other part of it was spent at a museum in the town of Essex. So I got to see, they brought me out this original land deed and my great-grandfather's signatures on it. That was 1880. And this, all these farm areas look the same, but that was the one, I think, where my grandmother grew up. So we just drove up and down the roads looking for the lots. We knew where they were, and some of them were on Talbot Road, Greaves. That was the Bennett one, and this is Carol's finger pointing out where we are, and then we've got a picture of a bunch of grass, you know. So these are Greaves farms, I think, right there. And so I kind of knew Joseph Bennett's farm was a little further along somewhere, but again, I was more interested in the closer in time ancestors. How you got land, and you can add to this, I'm not totally clear, but I started looking earlier back then. I got interested in Joseph, but all I could see was things saying Canada Land Company. I couldn't see anything. I thought it was, did Colonel Talbot has, distribute land in Essex? I couldn't see his name or anything. Sometimes you just bought from a private person that had bought land and then resold it quickly. Sometimes developers back then bought a lot of plots and then sold them off gradually. And then there was Colonel Talbot, who was given, 50,000 acres or more, I don't know what it was, to distribute. That's just some information about him, and he was very heavily involved in Essex County, it turns out. This is all the land he had to distribute. So London is up there at the upper right. I don't know how far east that goes, and then all of
The red
Essex
line
County.
There.
Yeah,
There's your
okay,
line.
thank you, yeah. So again, I knew, there's a Talbot Street in London, and I knew about London, and I don't know where his house was. Some people say it might have been Port Stanley or more towards Niagara. Anyway, I got home, and I thought, let's learn a little more about Colonel Talbot. So I'm starting to look at the maps and so on, and this is one of his penciled maps with pencil marks. And so I'm looking at it, all of a sudden the hair starts to, the back of my neck, the hair starts to rise, because right there it says Joseph Bennett, 1832. So my immigrant ancestor in 1832 got land, from Colonel Talbot. And I don't know if you can see it a little better.
Yes, you can.
And I'd never known that, and I was just really, impressed or something, taken aback. I'm a descendant of somebody who got land from
You've got
Colonel
a Colin
Talbot.
next door.
And he was not erased. He got a date later. So
Collins is next
so that
door.
was,
Excuse me, you've got a Colin next door to him. Didn't you say Collins was one of the family?
yeah, it was.
Is that one of the family?
Yeah, probably, because they were, the farms were just down the road, the
Yeah.
Reeves and Collins and
Yeah.
Bennett and so on. Well, not Bennett, but, so they all married each other, right?
Yes.
Because the farms were close. So that was my exciting find for, 2019, I guess.
Is everything square?
I don't have anything to show other than to hold up a couple of magazines. So I'll just shoot the camera over that way.
Well, you're showing your magazines, I'll load up my PowerPoint.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're up. Yeah.
I'll flip that around so I know whether I'm...
I'll just use this to point it at Dan.
bunch of magazines here dating from 1948. I thought I started, no, 49. This is a Crow's Nest magazine, and I guess it started in 1949, because this says volume 2. Oh, where's the volume 1? Disappeared? I thought I had a 1948 bunch here. Well, anyway, there should be some 1948s, and I don't know what happened to them. There's a pile somewhere. And I've left notes on there to say which ones are missing, which ones are present. Sometimes they're duplicates, but if you look near the back, often it has the name and number, the military or naval number of the person, and whether they retired, whether they got a promotion. The plan is to eventually have these all. I'll do it myself because I've got a big scanner and PDF them and OCR them and put them in a place where people can just find them through our branch and download what they want. They came from a fella in Belleville and his wife, Mark Turner, and oh boy, I wish I can remember his name. Turner.
Was it Al?
Al Turner, yeah, Al Turner. And they had a whole area in their basement, a whole rec room, dedicated to the ship that he was on and my father was on, the frigate in the war. It came back okay. Both of them came back okay. That ship had a few moments, on runs to Murmansk and rudders being damaged by their own depth charges, and quite a few interesting stories. But anyway, they didn't start to get together again until 1985, this group. And he had collected all these magazines. Now, I don't think they're all his. I don't know where he got them all because there's some duplicates in there. But it'd be there's some fantastic pictures and a great resource of naval history. And I don't think it's been, well, I did see many years ago a few of them scanned. And that was being done by the Naval Department, I guess, Department of the Navy. But all that stuff has disappeared. And I think the website that they had going at the time was just a bunch of fellows in the early days of the web who wanted to create a historical site for the Navy, but it seems like somebody in the Navy didn't like it. It's gone. Are you ready, Ann? Okay, I'll move the camera back to you. Thanks, Ann.
Okay, this summer, Dan and I, after remaining in Ontario for many, many years, went to a wedding in New York. I know it's a long trip to get to New York. Okay, so it was in, actually the wedding was in New Jersey, but we had to go through New York to get to it. And while we had a really good time. It was a Polish wedding. You've never seen so much food and dancing. And then everybody, wasn't full, so they had a barbecue the next morning. Anyway, we decided that while we were down there, we would take a slow drive back through New York State because Dan has ancestors that were from that area. And he actually still has some relatives down there, not because they stayed there, but because they moved from Peterborough to New York. So anyway, so we did. So we started off from New Jersey, and we came up through Peekskill, and then we went to Fishkill. And I had not taken my computer with me, and I don't have a smartphone. So I thought when I left, well, what'll I take with me? I took my Anantaffel. Okay, so if you haven't seen an Anantaffel, it's just a list of ancestors. Right? That's what Anantaffel means, ancestor list. And they're all numbered in a pattern. So each generation it doubles. So Donald's parents, he's 4, his father's 8, and then his mother's just 1 more. Right? So then James, his father is from 8 goes to 16. Because you have twice as many ancestors every generation, right? Makes sense. Okay, so I took that with me, So just in case I came across something that might be useful. So I can find the right one here. Doesn't matter. Somewhere on this chart. Well, I won't be able to find it, but at any rate, somewhere on this chart, but the font is too small on there for me to read. There's a fellow whose name is Cornelius Van Wyck, and there's a lot of Van Wicks down in that area, and some of them are famous, but we knew that in Fishkill, some of Dan's ancestors who were Van Wicks had lived there. So we decided to drive through Fishkill, and we pull in onto the main street, and right in front of us is a large Dutch Reformed church. And we'll now switch to that. Maximize this. Okay, so you would like to advance?
Yeah, Bob's getting the light for you.
Okay. So, this is the Dutch Reformed Church. We didn't have to look for it. It was right there, big sign, Dutch Reformed Church. You know, so we pulled over and parked. Okay, and beside the church, there's a little building that's their church office. And so we went in, and there were some very helpful ladies there. And one of them said that she would give us a tour of the church. Okay. So we walked around the outside, and there's a tombstone. There was a bunch of graveyard rather, and lots of tombstones. Let's see, it's kind of surrounded by the town now, but one of the things that's kind of interesting is many of the tombstones were made of brick. So you don't see that around here. I'm presuming there must have been a really big brickyard nearby, because a lot of things in that town were made of brick.
And it costs more back then for that kind of tombstone.
Oh, that's right, I'd forgotten that. The brick tombstones were the prestige tombstones. Okay. They could be fancier than the stone ones, I guess, because when the brick is soft, you could work it like an art piece of art. Okay, so it's hard to see there, but this is a tombstone of a fellow named Cornelius Van Wyck. So we think, oh, that's interesting, but we pretty soon found out there's Cornelius Van Wicks all over this graveyard. There's all kinds of Van Wicks everywhere, and lots of Corneliuses. Anyway, so that wasn't Dan's ancestor. And this tombstone is it's a woman who's a wife of another fellow named Cornelius Van Wyck, but she's not his ancestor either. And there's another one, Cornelius Van Wyck, but wrong middle. This one had a middle name, and it was the wrong middle name. Anyway, so we were thinking maybe we need to go and get some help here. So. This is kind of interesting that I put this slide in because the building has brick lintels rather than wooden lintels on the windows. They're actually baked brick lintels on the windows. They really like brick.
Yeah, it's not those red bricks, it's the part underneath the window there. It almost looks like wood, the way it's flaking.
Yeah. It's a sill, not a lintel. Lintels are...
Oh, sorry, you're right. It's sill, yeah.
Sill.
Says the real estate fellow. Okay, so we went inside, and as you can see, it's a lovely, lovely church inside. Dan went upstairs, and a lady was showing us around and telling us the history of the church. And on the wall in the church is a list with the handwritten sign up of the people who started the first church that was there. None of them were Dan's ancestors, but it was interesting anyway. And we found a book that has a picture of the first church, because that brick church wasn't the first one that was there. When it was first settled, they just had a little church, and you can see what it looked like.
Okay, and then
A lovely.
I don't know this. It's looking better on my screen, but that's an organ there. It's kind of
Like there, but there's a lovely organ.
at the back of the church.
Yeah, it's not showing up well on this projector.
No, I don't know why.
Okay, so there's a lady showing me around the church, and if you see that I have my back to a plaque that's on the wall, so I turned around. Okay, so there's the three Van Wyck brothers and their grandfather Cornelius Berentse, I don't know how to pronounce that, Van Wyck. That's Stan's ancestor, and it says right there
Where he came from in Holland.
Never knew that.
Yeah. So sometimes if you just you're just driving around and you stop in, you might see something interesting.
Serendipity.
Yeah. Okay, so that's starting over. So
in the cemetery.
well, she's got some cool stuff there.
I have a couple of things. I found this beautiful picture of a young couple. I'm assuming it's their wedding. It was at an antique store in Glen Williamson near Georgetown or Brampton, in a box of old family pictures. There's no name on the back, but I picked it up only because it was photographed by William H. Leonard Studio, Perry Street, Port Perry. And so I thought maybe somebody might recognize the picture. I tried, there is a fellow in Port Perry who is familiar with the studio, but I wasn't able to get in touch with him. But I just thought I would bring it, and maybe somebody might recognize them.
Will Leonard was a cousin of mine.
Lenny?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
what picture? Anyway, if I don't find a family for it, I'll just donate it to the Scuba Historical Society Museum.
We could put it in the newsletter.
Pardon me?
We could put it in the newsletter. Maybe someone who reads our newsletter will.
Yeah, you can. This is not the original. Like the original that I picked up was 4x6.
Right.
But I just took this to Staples and they increased the size so it's easier to see. But if you want to put it in there.
We could do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Leave it there for now for people to look at.
Put it in.
Yeah.
We've done that before. Try
Should
it.
I give it to you?
Well, just leave it on the table if you like for now, and we'll try it.
Thank you, Karen.
Sort it out for you.
Second of all,
Just another line.
50 cents is familiar with these books, Amos of 40. It's put out by the Grimsby Historical Society. It's about loyals and pioneer families of West Lincoln.
What was it called?
They're Amos of the 40. Loyalists and pioneer families of West Lincoln, 1783 to 1833. And you can buy it from the Grimsby Historical Society. So I'll have them because I had several UELs and they're in these books. So I just thought I would bring them and I'll leave them there if somebody wants to look at them. If you want to buy them, they're $10. You can get them off the internet. And yeah. Sad. Okay, so thirdly, I'm going to talk about my great-great aunt. I don't know if anyone here was at the last meeting when Ken Barris spoke about his book, Rush to Danger. It's about nurses and medics in the World War. And he spoke briefly about a medic prior to the war. He was on the crew of the Empress of Ireland. And the Empress of Ireland was on its 96th voyage to London, England, it left the port of Quebec on May the 28th, 1914, and around early in the morning, around 2 a.m.,
there was heavy fog on the St. Lawrence, and visibility was really poor. And a Norwegian freighter broadsided the Empress, and this particular fellow, he and a co-worker were able to break down the door and get out and onto the water and grab hold of a piece of wreckage, and they actually floated up to St. Lawrence and were picked up by fishermen. So as soon as I heard that, it brought back all kinds of memories for me, because I had done a lot of research on the Empress, and about my great-great aunt, and her name was Jane Etta Elizabeth Beckstead, and she was a passenger on the Empress. She was one of the 167 Salvation Army delegates going to International Salvation Army Conference in London, England. And there were, out of 167 delegates, only 24 survived. There were a total of, I think, 1,477 passengers on board, and only, and out of that, 1,012 perished. So Nettie was born in 1871 in around Morrisburg, Ontario. She was the sister of my great grandmother, Ellen Caroline Beckstead, and she joined the Salvation Army probably around when she was 20, because on the 1891 census, her and my great-grandparents are listed as Salvation Army. And there's much to her story, but I'm just giving the service. In 1913, she graduated from the nursing program at Winnipeg Hospital. And on May 22nd, 1914, her brother, James Austin Beckstead, living in Montreal, received a letter from her stating that she had planned on coming home for the summer, but that one of her co-workers had been picked as a delegate to go on the conference, and she had become seriously ill. And so she wrote in the letter, "It is now my lot to go to this international conference." And so the train arrived from Winnipeg with many delegates as they picked up along the way, and they arrived in Toronto on May the 24th. And Toronto sent them off with this great parade down Yonge Street with the Salvation Army band playing. And then they all boarded back onto the train and headed for Quebec City. And they arrived on May the 28th. And before the Empress left port, there was a postal pickup, and one of those letters made its way to a family in Toronto, and in the letter it mentioned that Nettie Beckstead, she was actually called Nettie Beckstead, and that she was sitting on the upper berth on the train, and that was there was this person called Gracie Hannigan, and it turned out I researched Gracie, and Gracie was 7 years old. Her father and mother were with the Salvation Army, and they were supposedly going to be going on a vacation after the conference, and it turned out that Gracie's parents both perished, and she was actually rescued by one of the lifeboats, and was taken back to Rimouski, Quebec, which is just the sinking happened just off the shore from Rimouski. And she was brought back to Toronto to live with her paternal grandparents. And in researching her, I found out something interesting, and that is that Gracie was born in 1907. Her father was James Edward Hannigan, and Gracie was one of 4 of the 138 children on board that survived. And Gracie was born in Oshawa.
Wow.
And so Oshawa can claim that that the birth of one of the 4 children that survived the Empress was born here. And onward. And so all the 167 delegates and their families boarded the Empress on the afternoon of the 28th. And I'm sure there's much excitement and anticipation for the days to follow. And the Salvation Army band was playing as they all boarded the ship, and they played God Saves Queen, O Canada, and they played God Be With You Till We Meet Again. And in the river, one of the river pilots escorted Empress down the St. Lawrence till 1:30 in the morning. And then around 2 a.m., the heavy fog came across the St. Lawrence, and all of a sudden the Empress was broadsided by a Norwegian freighter, and the Empress sank within 15 minutes. And unfortunately, there were, as I said, 167 Salvation Army delegates on board, and out of that, only 24 survived. And unfortunately, Nettie did not survive, and her remains were never found, although her brother tried for weeks to try and find her, but she was never found. And in May of 2014 was the 100th year anniversary, and so there's much on the news about it at the time. I don't know if anybody saw it. So the newspaper in Morrisburg, where Nettie and my family lived, on September the 10th of 2014, they did a full-page story on Nettie, some of my family, and the sinking of the Empress. And then on May 25th of 2014, the Mount Pleasant Cemetery in Toronto, they have many headstones for the Salvation Army delegates that perished. And also Nettie's family put a memorial headstone for her in the St. Lawrence Valley Cemetery near Long Sault, which is actually near Upper Canada Village. And so on that day, in May 2014, my cousin Cynthia, who descends from Nettie's brother, and we actually met through ancestry. She lives in Toronto, so we've been in touch a lot. So we went to this ceremony, and Nettie's name is actually, it's on one of the headstones, but it says adjutant in Exted. And so a lot of Salvation Army people there, and were families of these people that perished. And so at the end, the Salvation Army band played, well, actually, I should say, like, that being there was really emotional for everybody, but as the band played God Be With You Till We Meet Again, it was really quite emotional for everyone.
Carolyn, do you have the article there, the 2014 article?
I have everything. The article that Cynthia and I did, the full page is right here. This is actually the full page. And it just goes into like my story and how I discovered Medi, and this actually, this one here, this actually was put out by the Morrisburg Leader, June the 5th, 1914, and it just says, Empress of Ireland, founders, over 1,000 people drowned. A former Morrisburg lady is reported to have met her fate on the Empress.
Now, the water would have been really cold at the end of May, I guess, and is that the reason that so many, well, 15 minutes for a ship to go down is pretty fast too, but...
And the problem too was, because as the ship went down, it went on its side, so there were enough lifeboats for everyone, because on the Titanic, which actually happened 2 years before, so actually this tragedy is known as the worst marine tragedy in Canadian history. But it's also called the Forgotten Tragedy because the Titanic happened 2 years before, and the Great War was just starting, so it got lost in time. And so with although the problem with the Titanic was they didn't have enough lifeboats because they had over 2 hours to get it together. The Empress didn't. It only had 15 minutes, but as the boat went down that way, the lifeboats on this side sank or flew in the air and landed up hitting people that were being thrown into the water. And, so the Salvation Army lost a huge amount of their delegation and a huge amount of their people from their band.
I don't have anything on the presentation, but I do want to show you some odds and sods. This interesting little object. My mother has it's made of a tree. See the bark on there, and it's kind of like a junk drawer, and it might have even sat on my grandfather's dresser. In here, some really cool things to me, and also there are pieces of junk like buttons, safety pin collection. If anyone wants it, they can have it. My grandfather was he retired squadron sergeant major of the offshore regiment, and in here is an old book, and it's got notations. This date here is in 1920, where he's written where, let's see, Corporal L. Plew, taken off strength, something 1933, and qualified. There's promotions about him. So there are a few people in here, Private Gale, Private Galt, there, things like that. I thought were really interesting, and I think one of the kids, not mine, because I didn't get it till they were much older, but maybe my mom or one of her siblings scribbled on some of it. But to me, it's really interesting. It's an old purse, beautiful little purse of
no money.
Grandma's, yeah. And
is there $50 in there?
No.
No mad money?
No, but there was money in it, and I'll get to that. My grandma's passport, old passport. Wow. Yeah. And they were members of the, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. They were members of my grandpa and the family, my grandma and my mom and her siblings and other family members. My grandpa's father, etc., were members of the Orange. the Orange Lodge. And so there is a collection of these, they love to have this regalia. And so this one is dated 1962-63. There's some older ones. This one is from...
There's a star.
Pardon me. 1918. So there are other ones that are a little bit, well, in between those dates. And they're different, like they're I don't know, just really interesting to me. I'll just leave them like that. There's another one that's dated 1926. So these were presented to them for various things. This is the LOL Lodge number 2167 for Oshawa. Some other items. Now, if you come up here to look at these, I'll leave them out, but please be careful. Some of these pins, you know, they're old and they're not staying closed, so you might get pinched. But I mean, the jewelry these people wore was, this one is from, 50 years service. That was my grandfather, 1922 to 1972.
Has the Orange Lodge kind of faded out? I don't know much about it.
Yes, it has in many places. Some, I understand, are still
Yeah, there's still a few around.
Still getting together, yeah.
Kenwood
One in
has
Whitby.
one.
It's still good. And there were other items in here. Well, there's a bosun's whistle, 1912. I'm going to patent on it anyway. Now there, whoops, sorry. I tried to put it back on and it wouldn't stick. This is from, and it's got their names on it, either my grandfather or my great-grandfather's. This is 1929. So they are quite old. And yeah, they've been cooped up in this box for quite some time. Other things, some of them I couldn't tell if they were military or whether they were the Orange Lodge. Some of them definitely are military. As I was looking online, I found, there's another fancy one. I found what I believe is, that's a cap pin, and it might be from the First World War. There's another one here. I'll have to do some more research. I was going through it today, so of course I've meant to do this for a long time. I'll just put them out. If anyone recognizes them, let me know. I'm not even sure what that is. I'll have to, you can't really read that easily. Here's another one. And this, I'm going to save the coolest for last. There are some, you call them patches, RAF, Regiment, more, Prince of Wales.
This would be RAF from the war then? RAF?
Well, that's British.
Yeah, well, Royal Air Force.
Yeah, it's a patch.
Okay.
Is it RAF or RCA?
No one says RAF. Yeah, don't say C.
Royal Air Force.
Yeah.
Well, that has to be Second War, because RAF wasn't formed till
There you go, Second World War for that.
18 or 1919.
Right after the First World War.
Right after the First World
Good,
War.
okay, good, that helps. There's some other pins here. And then there's a bar, metal, and then I guess they had their own coins, the chosen few.
And what could you buy though? I wonder that.
One's been well used.
Oranges.
It might be lucky because it might
Oh.
be that someone's rubbed it. It's very, very
Oh, it's not
smooth.
heads on both sides then, eh?
And then there are some other pins here, and my grandpa worked at General Motors for over 50 years. And there's his, those are some military buttons. UW, another GM one, and some other odds and sods. I'll just leave them there if anyone's interested to look. And then there's this, and I tried to find who the owner of this is. This is a medal from, it's got 1914, 1915 on it, and it's for service in the First World War. And it says Private J. White. And it looks like the number 4, but I could be wrong. I did bring in a magnifying glass.
But is that your family, the name White?
I have Whites, but nobody I know of. I haven't had time to pinpoint, but it could be that it's from family, maybe known to my great-grandfather. And he was with the Canadian Mounted Rifles. And the number on it, I thought maybe would be a service number, but it didn't come up.
Battalion.
When I checked it on the, it's a certain 109875 or
Sometimes
675.
some medals were just numbered as they were given out. So like if you had a certain number of medal, of that kind of medal given out, that would, each one would have a different number on it.
Okay.
So they would know whose medal that was.
Okay, well, I wish I could tell who Private Jade White was, so, that might be difficult, but that's there. And then there is, this is a parchment that is another Orange Lodge parchment. And on it is written names from people in this area, because it says Primary Orange Lodge at Oshawa, County of South Wellington, Ontario. And the seal here doesn't have an imprint, so I think this was a mistake and it had to be redone, but somehow Grandpa kept it because he loved to keep things. Things meant a lot to him. So I transcribed it, and thanks, Steve.
Put a medal on it.
And I got it. I've got an Orange Lodge book of his. I've got the, I guess I could have done a PowerPoint, but I have some old pictures of them in their regalia. And various family members as well. And about the Battle of the Boyne, they were in the Sons of Ulster Flute Band in Oshawa in their pictures. That's where that video comes from. Yeah. And Juvenile
The parade,
Lodge,
you mean?
Lodge.
The parade?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And here is a copy of a transfer of a membership from Raymond in the district of Muskoka to Oshawa for Ronald Greer. Well, he happens to be the father of a girl that I grew up with, that I knew in public school and onward till now. And so I'll have to return the original. I've got it here. And then there are various pictures of my family in here. And then Grandpa had in his, it was from the War Office in 1938, and it wasn't to be published. It was very secret. Grandpa did the training for the Oshawa Regiment for the war, and this is the tank training. it's got some information.
Now, were those tanks made in Oshawa as well?
I don't know about the tanks.
Anybody
Brendan
know?
just did the training.
Yeah, I just wondered if they also made them here.
Don't know. No, that's a good question, but I don't know.
Tank Museum.
You think they,
Go ask the Tank Museum.
Yeah.
They've got an archivist.
okay. Yeah, because I think McLaughlin was even doing,
Yeah, a lot of military vehicles were made. I don't remember tanks in particular. Even aircraft were made here.
that's right, yeah. Mosquito, was it?
Yeah.
So the people's names that I wrote down here are typed out from this, and this is dated, I forgot to tell you, this is dated November 1910. That's when that comes. This other one that I was telling you about, Ronald Greer, is from 1957. So they went from parchment to paper. That's okay. And it was Brother Robert Davidson at the time, Brother John Wiggins, H.B. McCabe, A.C. Copeland, William McGee, Alfred Fursey, William Bellamy, Andrew Henderson, and William Lee, T.S. Sproul are the names on that. So I'll just put that there, and that's what I brought for you.
I brought a couple copies of some of the old wills I've been gathering all year long. So if you want to look at some of the old writing and dialect and anything else, this one a bit more on the back page here. But there's the two wills. I'll just leave them here for you to look at. You can try and decipher them if you want. I'll give you a hint. They both start off with, "In the name of God, amen." After that, it gets a lot harder. Some of them.
Obviously, you've translated them.
I've been working on, those two I haven't transcribed yet, but I will eventually.
Okay.
But a lot of the other ones I have, and I've been working pretty hard on them.
What years are they from?
I think these are 1500s.
So they're not Canadian then, eh?
No, I don't think.
1580 and I think 1558.
So they'll not even be modern English letters.
That's right.
No,
They'll be the old secretary hand or something like that.
That's right. They are very interesting, some of them.
Where E's look like O's and,
S's look like F's.
Yes.
yeah.
Things like that. Now, I have another thing here that my uncle gave me just recently when he moved out of his house. If you know what it is, don't yell it out. But I'm going to give you a guessing game here. Just a little squatty thing. Hole in the top. Okay, Bob will. And then there's a little opening on the side here as well. Now, Bob thinks he knows. Deb, did I see him?
I think so.
Okay. Which?
I have a guess.
Oh, okay. Who wants to go first on the guess? Anyone else have a guess too, or?
I'll let others guess. I'm sure I know what it is.
If you're sure you know. This apparently, I'll give you a little more work on it. Came out of an old hotel they were tearing down up at Port Perry, or just north of that, somewhere in that area anyways. And in truth, it's pretty disgusting. Does that fit in with your guesses?
Yes.
Yeah, can you point the top?
Okay.
Can we see the top, or point it at the camera?
No.
Oh, here, I'll point.
Sorry.
Tip it up.
Yeah, so we can see the,
So there's a hole in the top,
yeah.
and it's a beveled edge down. And then there's a spout here, or whatever you want to call it, an opening. And it just sits flat on the bottom. Very small, compact, and gross.
Can you turn it up? It's on point. Yeah.
Is it kept under the bed?
No.
Put it on the night.
But you're warm, very warm. Long in.
Is it in the corner of the bar?
I would think it'd be in the corner of the bar, or something along that line.
I have a guess then.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, throw it out there.
Spittoon.
Yep, that is it. Apparently it's a spittoon from
Port Perry Way.
Is it washed? I'm chewing to death. You hope so. You didn't wash it?
Does it still smell of nicotine?
Yeah.
No, but there's a yellow stain right in the middle. So I'll leave it here on the thing so you can see it.
How did your uncle get that?
He bought it, they were selling artifacts from the bar off, and he just happened to be in the right place at the right time, I guess.
Now, as far as
Yeah, well, I thought spittoons were big things that stood, a whole
Yeah.
3 foot tall or something.
Brass.
You just aimed and hopefully you got it.
Yeah, I wonder what the record is for distance for hitting that.
Can we try? Hold it up.
You promised to wash it out after.
No, hold it up, okay?
No. If you miss, I'm the next target. Okay, I guess we've got to get moving here now. We lost our program, so I'll get Ann to bring it back. But thank you everyone for bringing in your show and tell, or bringing in bragging. And as I said, we've left it out on the table. You can take a look at it while we're enjoying our goodies. Oh, there we are. Now you got me wondering how I'm wiping my hands now. Yeah.
I don't know how to make this.
So do slideshow.
Go from that slide.
Which slide?
Well, you're on that slide. Go to slideshow and say.
Okay. I read normally the mail or email that comes in, and most of these are email. The first one is November 1st. It comes from Maryland Warboys. I found the above person, Reverend Frederick John Reed, 1891 to 1971, and Anne Helen Mayle, 1893 to 1971, at Sunderland Cemetery. Would there be any obituaries for them? I would like precise dates and names if there were any children. My husband's great-grandmother was Eliza Mayle and a cousin of Anne Helen. She was from Brant County, and Eliza lived in Oxford County after she married. I volunteer at Norwich Archives. I've been working on male genealogy. Any help would be appreciated. And again, that was November 1st. The next one is November 18th, and it comes from a Jim Zastrow, Z-A-S-T-R-O-W, an email again. He has 8 attachments with them. He's looking at James Clark, 1799 to 1851, and Susan Clark, marriage to Frederick Hunsicker, S-U-N-S-I-C-K-E-R, 1867. Isabel Clark, baptism, Pickering, 1847. James Clark, Salem Cemetery, Section A, Pickering. He has a death certificate for James Clark, Canada Census 1851 Pickering, and 1851 for the Canadian Census, I guess. Baptism records in New York as well. His third great-grandfather's name is James Clark. He was born in Ireland about 1799. He married Anne Pye and immigrated to Canada, possibly via New York, and settled in Pickering. My second great-grandmother, Susan, was born in 1842. Susan married my second great-grandfather, Frederick Hunsicker, in 1867. Is it possible to locate records of when James and when Anne moved to Pickering and the place in Ireland where they came from? I'm assuming it was Northern Ireland since they were Methodist. Based on the attached 1851 census, James Clark died during the next year. See page 2, line 3. Attached is information from the cemetery where he is buried. I've also attached James Clark Jr.'s death certificate, listing the names of his parents as James and Anne Pye. I have hit a wall with uncovering additional information about my third great-grandparents because of this. I am in need of great assistance from a genealogist. I would appreciate if you could forward a name or names to use of genealogists that may be interested in assisting me with this project. So it's got a big project. I think I've got another one in there. Oh, just a thick piece of paper. The next one is the 13th of November. It says, I've located several ancestors in Bethsaida Cemetery, Tyrone, Durham. The find a grave description of the cemetery mentions that there were records for this cemetery. The contact person mentioned has passed away. Her husband suggested that a Ralph or Joyce Weary, W-E-R-R-Y, may have the records but did not have a contact name for them. Do you know a contact person for the board of Bethsaida Cemetery? The names I am researching are Mountjoy and McLaughlin, and that comes from Karen Henkelman.
Right place for McLaughlin.
Bethesda Cemetery.
Yeah, Bethesda.
Bethesda.
Bethesda? What did I say?
Bethesda or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bethesda, yeah. It's Bethesda, sorry.
Awkward pronunciation.
The next one was the 11th of November, and it comes from Duane, D-U-A-N-E, Stewart in Regina.
That's Dwayne.
You say Dwayne, okay. Okay. I am doing some family research and I'm trying to locate a grave that is probably on Scugog Island, as that is where the family of Charles Nesbitt and his wife Rebecca are. Rebecca whose maiden name was Stewart, is a daughter of my great-great-grandfather. Is there a digital copy of the transcriptions for this different cemeteries in the area, or do I need to find the info at the library or on microfiche? Thanks for your consideration. The next one is on the 11th as well, from Adam Long. I'm doing research on my family history and I'm having trouble finding contact information for the Uxbridge Cemetery. Could you please assist me? I'm trying to identify plots where relatives are buried. No names, no nothing. This comes from Jean Hennessy on the 7th of November. Could you please help me find more information on the time that my ancestors spent in Durham County, Darlington Township? They appear on the 1851 census. McComb, M-C-C-O-M-B, McComb family, 1 to 9, and Jim McLaughlin, 23, and the English family, 31 to 36. Those are on the actual census. Any help that you can provide would be greatly appreciated. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Dee.
Okay, for our current account, our balance is $3,023.73. We had deposits, I think October, $1,151.08, and November, $143.75. And withdrawals in October, $2,529.09, and November, $1,512.42. That's the workshop expenses. So our balance is $3,023.
Thanks, Sheila. January the 7th, breaking down brick walls. If you want to send your brick problem to the branch, we can try and work on it ahead of time to have a better response for you. Send it to Durham Research at ots.01.ca. As we just mentioned, 4th of February will be Letters from the Trenches, Jennifer Waymar. And the 3rd of March, Indigenous Research, Amy Barron from the Clarendon Museum and Archives. Now, of course, if the weather's really terrible, ice storms and things like that, the meetings will be canceled. And that's why we try to have local people talking in the winter months, because we've had to cancel before. Or they cancel on us when they're coming. DNA group will be talking 3rd Wednesday of the month, December 18th, 7 p.m. in our branch office on the top level. Branch library is also up on the top level. We're open usually the 3rd and 4th Friday of each month from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or by appointment. And we also open early before each monthly meeting, so I was up there tonight at 6:45. But because the 4th Friday of the month falls in between Christmas and New Year's, we've changed it to the 2nd Friday of this month, for this month only. So the 2nd and 3rd Fridays of the month will be open from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
We want to do the 50-50 draw now then? Has everybody got their ticket?
Whoa.
Whoa. Wishful thinking. It's always the person after me. I think about almost the last 4 times the agenda say, meet me, almost last 2 or 3 times, and the person right close to me.
How long do we have to eat? Because it's 9 o'clock.
We got a half an hour anyways.
Oh, great. I can take care of a few cookies and.
Ann is just getting everything ready for us over there. And thank you all for coming out this evening, because the weather wasn't the greatest, although at least it wasn't as bad as Sunday and Monday, so.
Holding it at home. Another one. This is the next one. Okay, thank you.
And feel free to come up and examine everything here. Just try to keep the food away from all the artifacts, just so we don't stain anything. You want to see the books that are all in here and everything else? You want to use the spittoon, Deb?
No, I won't use that.